In a season like no other, as I said, Brian, the champions have been able to do what only the toughest and strongest could do in 20.
Howard, we like it, Duck. The Saints fans, stand up. Your team has played a fantastic game tonight, and they have beaten one of the best teams in the comp, and certainly the best team over the last 3 or 4 years.
Moment for Robert Harvey. The former St Kilda champion gets his chance as a coach.
What a turnaround from premiership success to missing finals altogether. And Richmond back in 12th.
If you told me at the start of the season that Richmond were going to miss the finals, I probably would have called you crazy. But here we are again. Somehow Richmond have managed to fall out the 8. So it's pretty much after, I think, that Dusty injury. People have been saying no Dusty, no Tigers. But I think it's coming to an end for Richmond. They've won 3 and 4. I think the Dynasty's over though. It's normally that time where you see if a team drop out of the 8, a couple of years after they won a flag, it's coming to an end. So I think that's timed up for Richmond. And yeah, it's crazy to think that.
Are they gonna come back?
They've got a list still for finals, but for the teams coming up with, I don't think they're flag contenders anymore. You've got Melbourne, you got the Dogs, you got the Power, you got Brisbane. I don't
Geelong
think
still potentially next year.
Yeah. I don't think Richmond are going to be able to win the flag, but by all means, they're all meant for finals. But it's going to be very hard for them to win the flag next year.
Very cool.
Now into the first segment, what was the best win that you saw that they had?
For their best win, I reckon we're going to have to go all the way back to round 5. It was a Thursday night at Marvel Stadium. The Saints hosted Richmond in a bit of a built-up match, I feel. The Saints they were almost a chance for many.
Yeah.
And Richmond decided that they weren't going to be anything close to a chance and smashed them right out of the gates, really. It was an 86-point margin at the end, 134-48. Nothing really else to add, just class performance from the reigning premiers.
Yeah, for sure. With mine, I've gone something a little different. I've gone back to the Dreamtime match against the Bombers, obviously. The Bombers early in the last kicked three goals in a row to be up by about 3 or 4 points. And then everyone thought that Essendon were a chance, but then in the final 15 minutes or so, Richmond kicked 7 goals in a row just to blow out the 39-point win. So for me, that's the best way just to respond how they were. They were under the pump by enormous Essendon momentum, but just kick 7 in a row late in the game was very impressive in my eyes. Now on to the negative end. They had a few, but what was the worst loss that you thought they had?
Conveniently enough, it comes 10 weeks later against the same club. So they had the best win as the Saints, which I just said, and now they have their worst loss against the Saints too. Now, this match, they only scored 22 points, which was one of the lowest in club history.
Just a 2 goal, I think 2 for the game.
Yeah, two goals. To Edwards and Martin, so 2 experienced campaigners kicking their goals, came in the second and third quarter. And the Saints kept control early. They bounced out of the blocks after round 5. Yeah. We were thinking, all right, Richmond's going to get their season back on track here. This is where they start to push after the bye. And 3 goals to none in the first. And then St Kilda just carried it home. Yes, St Kilda only scored 62. It was a pretty low scoring game, but a 40-point win and keeping the reigning premiers to 22.
Yeah, for sure. It was great. With my one, it had to be the Suns for me. in round 16, it was most talked about was
Week
Gold
after.
Coast. They came down to Melbourne, the Suns, and everyone thought Richmond was going to just take this game out of their hands. But the Richmond of 2021, like this one slit, and yeah, how they lost is probably the big question against Gold Coast, who we all know is not that great, haven't been great in the whole club history. So, reigning premiers losing to Gold Coast at the home ground. So this wasn't a great performance following the week. They lost to the Saints by 40 odd points.
Very
Now,
good.
This one was a tricky one for both of us. Who did you have in their best and fairest?
It
top three?
was tricky, and I think we had the same people. So at number 3, I'm going to go with Jack Riewoldt, who once again kicked 51 goals. I think he averaged about 2.5 a game.
Yeah.
It was
He just did what he
pretty.
did.
Yeah, did his normal self. A pretty. I wouldn't say average. It was decent enough for Richmond.
Yeah.
At number 2, I had their actual club best and fairest winner, if I'm not mistaken, in Dylan Grimes, who won the Jack Dyer medal. He was once again experienced campaigner down back, steered the ship, led the way for some of the young guns like Noah Bolter and things to sort of push their way through. And number 1, I actually had Short, who averaged the almost 25 touches a game and looked very good off the halfback flank for the Richmond Tigers.
It was hard to go past those 3, but I switched just around Grimes and Riewoldt. I had Grimes at 3, Riewoldt at 2, and Short at 1. And Short's really come out. He had a good season last year, and he carried on that form. Very elite kick. It averaged about the 25 touches a game, so he's looking very good for Richmond's future in the next couple of years or so. I believe he's not too old too, so I believe he's 25, so hitting his prime. So he should be a very good player for the Tigers. And
he's got 1 year left on his contract. Is this someone Richmond should be looking to extend like now, or?
If I was them, I'd probably try and get Lock on to a contract for him as soon as possible. Because I don't want to let him slip. He's a big player for them, and to let him slip would be just a big blow for Richmond. So I think they should crack down and try and get their contract done and dusted out of the way.
Cool. Now, the most surprising player, and honestly, I don't know of anyone.
Neither do I. I couldn't pick one.
I couldn't say that someone really exceeded expectations on pre-season. Would you say that someone didn't reach expectations? Is there anyone that comes to mind, or is there just everyone just played an average season and injury ravaged and trying to bounce back next year?
It's hard to pick out just a single player. It was more like the whole club as a collective this year. But if anyone had to pick an extended player, it was Noah Bolter. Although he only played the 14 games, he went up in a lot of his categories, and he's looking to be a very promising player for Richmond's future going forward. Once like Voston and Grimes, and obviously Asprey's gone, Hooley. So I think he's probably going to be the stone in defence that they're going to have coming through. So he looked promising as he did last year. So he's carried on that form. But again, it's just the whole club was failed to reach expectations.
I think maybe a Chol actually had a little bit. He only played the 10 games. That's the whole problem. I would have said a breakout season, but he didn't play enough games. He's 24. He'll be 25 by the start of next season.
He looked all right.
He did. He had some flashy moments. I think it might have been against West Coast or something. Either that or the Dreamtime match where he tapped it to himself and then streamed through and fended off 2 and bombed it into the 50 and so on. He has his moments.
He does. If those pros continue, developing him, he's probably going to be the premier ruckman once, Big Nate goes. So the plans to start going through him. And he is very good in the air. He does take some good contested marks.
He's got a good leap as well.
So, promising signs for Richmond going forward with Big Marbier. Now, what do they need to do this off season?
Again, that's
a point. You don't know.
It's a really hard question.
It is.
Where I think we got to step back and ask, where did they go wrong? First of all,
I think it was just injury for them. Probably was the biggest.
I think that was part of it, but everyone says no Dusty, no Tut. You can't rely on one player to win you a premiership.
Yeah.
Like, yes, when you hit finals, Dusty turns into the LeBron James of the AFL.
Yeah, legit.
But you can't rely on him. If it's just him, what else have you got?
Exactly. It's just...
and when he went out, that was it. That was done.
Those went to pieces. They just shattered. So, so start relying on more than Dusty because he's a great player, but...
What happens when he retires in 4 or 5 years' time? If that.
Rebuild phase. I don't know.
He's 30 now.
He's got 3-4 years left.
Yeah, probably 3 good seasons left in him.
Yeah. So, they can't be relying on one player all the time. They need to be, Cochin needed to step up. Riot should have stepped up.
Cochin had a pretty downish season as well.
Edwards, he had an all right season, but those older guys need to, they'll probably where it went wrong. Because they're probably the guys they rely on the most. So as a Richmond have a few young guys, Bowles, who said, Marbier, Short. So, I think that's where it went wrong. The veterans didn't step up when they needed to. And, that's pretty much what happened.
So if we know what's wrong, how do they step up again to push into finals? Because as you said, there's lots of up-and-coming teams. You got your Essendon, you got your Fremantle, you got St Kilda potentially trying to push next year. Carlton, if it ever happens, might push next year.
Yeah.
So are they good enough for finals?
On paper?
If you look at their best 22, are they a finals team?
Yes. In my eyes, they've got one more year of finals, I reckon. If you had to look on paper, they've got still a great list. But it's just what happens when they get on the field is where it all goes wrong. So they're going to have to have some big off season. Damon Hugg's going to have to go back to the drawing board and, point out even some single players and say that where you need to lift here. And it just need to...
there's a lot to work with, but there's also a lot to work on.
Yeah. They need to probably just decide on who they want to work on, and then
they're in a bit of a no man's land, if you want to call it that, sort of. Yeah. They're just drifting, not really sure.
Yeah.
And we saw this with Hawthorn 5 or 6 years ago, where they started their rebuild 3 years too late, and now they're 6 years behind schedule.
Yeah, exactly.
As soon as they were out 2017, they probably should have, all right, we're done, off you go to another team, which they did. They did with Hodge, Lewis, Mitchell. Yeah. But they didn't get enough in return.
Yeah.
And we could see this with Richmond.
Yeah. They might be extending, try and compete for too much longer. But as you said, they just need to kind of pull in the pin and say, all right, we're done. Our dynasty's over. Time to get rid of our older guys, bring in some younger guys. And that's probably what you probably sum it up beautifully. That's what they probably need to do. So, in my eyes, the dynasty's over. I think no more flags for Richmond. I don't think any more flags for Richmond. No, I don't see. I see. I see got the Melbourne's too strong. The Port, Brisbane, Bulldogs. So, still 3 and 4 years, but I think it's the end of an era for Richmond Footy Club.
Now, your predictions for 2022, whereabouts on the ladder? Give us a range on where you think they could potentially finish.
I'm going between the 8 to about 10 or 12 rank this year. I don't think they'll drop below But I do see them, having a bit of a higher season, as we just discussed. For the problem they resolved, I believe they can then go higher up. But again, you say you still got your Fremantles. We heard about the Lockie news. Maybe he might go down to Fremantle, and then Freo will be able to bump up. Got the Essendon, they might be able to run it back. St Kilda might be able to contend. Carlton. So anywhere from the 8 to 12 range, I reckon, one of those positions. I don't see them finishing higher than 7th or 8th, but I definitely see them finishing below there. Where do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Personally, if I had to put a ladder predictions thing up right now, I wouldn't have them in the 8. But that being said, it wouldn't surprise me if they snuck into 8th spot. Anything above 8 is probably not going to happen. But I would not be surprised if they finished 8th, and I reckon the lowest they could finish is 12th, like this year. I do think they might have a little bit of a redemption year and bump up a couple more wins. But as you said, it's not going to be enough to compete for a flag. So, now the report grade, if it was a test and you had to stamp on the front after marking the 22 games of a season, what would you give the Richmond Tigers for 2021?
You can't really go past a D, really. It wasn't what you so-called a failed season because, they didn't finish, low, but kind of was. Everyone thought, will they go for the three-peat? But again, it's just what's fail. You just you can't really blame injuries, like we said, but from going from back to back to that missing finals, it's just unheard of, really. It's honestly hard to go past a D.
I have to agree with a D. I don't think it was an F because there was a few injuries. Obviously, Dusty with his kidney missing this season, about, I don't know, around 16 or 17, something like that.
Bolter
as well. There you go. So there was a few niggling injuries that sort of threw a bit of a spanner in the work. But I think I agree that you can't really go past a D after the couple or the 4 seasons that they've had to push out and completely flunk out of finals is not great.
Yeah, it's not for sure. It wasn't a great season for Richmond, but maybe redemption season on the cards, but
you can only hope for Richmond fans. Is there anything else to add, or are we all sweet for the Richmond Tigers?
I think I'm done on my end, so I think that wraps it up.
Very good. All right. So thank you all for watching and listening, wherever that may be. Join us tomorrow as we have a look at the semi-finals and dissect them, as well as all the latest news regarding Lockie Neal and things of the type. And Wednesday for the Fremantle Dockers season review, if I'm not mistaken. So catch us then.
So